Makkot Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, awareness, hatraa. So yesterday we began to develop a revolutionary understanding of the difference between shogeg and mezid, doing something with intentionality and doing something unintentionally, and the role of hatraa, the role of warning. One cannot punish a person with death or malkot, with lashing, unless there has been appropriate warning seconds before the person actually does the avera. And what we talked about was that the difference between mezid and shogeg is a level of awareness. Mezid means doing something in full awareness. Shogeg means doing something. Now, normally we understand it to mean shogeg means doing something without awareness. But that will not help us, and isn't where we were going at the end of yesterday's shir. Where we're going is shogeg is something done with less than full awareness. And that's very different. That means if you're just a little bit, not 100% fully aware, you're already in the area of shogeg. So based on yesterday's shir, the shogeg and mezid, doing something intentionally or unintentionally, are 2 points on a spectrum. It's not like binary. They're 2 points on a spectrum. But in order to punish somebody, you need to be at the extreme of intentionality, at the extreme of awareness. If you move 1 millimeter off extreme awareness, you're already in the realm of unintentional. And that has unbelievable implications. It's not that often that when I'm learning, I'm just brought to tears. And with this piece, preparing this shir this morning, it just brought me to tears. And you'll see how what this understanding unleashes in our understanding of awareness, and how far it takes the understanding of awareness, and how we're going to use this understanding to answer a question of Rabbi Kiva. When Rabbi Kiva asks a question and doesn't answer it, as Marosh Yeshiva Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz used to say, don't try answering it. If Rabbi Kiva doesn't answer the question, what he's telling you is there is no answer. And what he's telling you is, if you have the same question as he has, you and he have learned the Gemara incorrectly. So figure out another way to learn the Gemara. And Baruch Hashem, you'll see, yesterday we figured out another way to understand things that alleviates Rabbi Kivage's question. Now, of course, Rabbi Kivage, in his genius, for some reason, isn't able to learn the way we learned yesterday. But we don't have his genius, so we have the luxury of ignorance, and we can understand the Gemara the way we understood it yesterday, and as long as we can continue in that way, it works well, and we'll see how this helps us understand a Tosfos and the whole Gemara that we're busy with. We've been talking about lav hanitach la'aseh, where the Torah states a prohibition, and alongside it gives a remedy. You're not allowed to do this, and if you do this, you should do that. And if you do that, then you don't get malkot, then you don't get lashes, basically. Alav hanitach la'aseh, there's no malkot for. 2 classical cases of alav hanitach la'aseh, a prohibition with a remedy alongside it, are in Parshas Ki Teitzei. The one is the case of shiluach hakein, where there's a lav, lo tikach ha'em al habanim, you're not allowed to take the mother and the fledglings together. And the aseh is shaleach deshalach et ha'em. And if you did take them together, let the mother go. And then you won't have malkut, because you've fulfilled the mitzvah aseh. You did a lot aseh, you transgressed the prohibition when you took them together, but by releasing the mother bird, you've given yourself the remedy and you're off the hook. The other case is that if a man rapes a woman, and I don't want to use the word rape, because we think of rape and we think of violence and we think of something terrible, which it is. But rape is also on a spectrum. From seduction to rape is also a spectrum. And we saw in the whole Me Too movement, not so clear where exactly that spectrum is. So when we talk about a rapist in this context, I want you to think about a man or a woman. Just for example, think about a case of a woman who's working for a powerful man, and he invites her out for dinner, and she's so flattered. And they go out together, and they're spending time together. And then he invites her up to his hotel room. We saw how many cases of this. And she goes, and she's flattered, and she thinks it's marvelous, and she thinks it's just I don't know what she thinks. And then he starts becoming amorous, and she starts resisting, and he becomes a little forceful. That's the rapist we're talking about. When the Torah says, if you do that, you marry her and you stick with her for life. So again, if you think of a rapist as the Hamas terrorists on October the 7th, then you wouldn't understand why the Torah says, got to marry her for life. But if you think of the Me Too movement, you can understand very well that some of those girls would be only too delighted if the court said, you know what, Mr. Weinstein, she's now Mrs. Weinstein. and for the rest of your life. There are a lot of girls who would have been very happy with that. And that's what the Torah gets. She's not forced on her. If she doesn't want it, she doesn't have to have it, or her father doesn't want it. But if they do want it, then that's what she has to do. V'lo tiyeh le'isha, she shall be his wife. That's the positive. Lo yuchal shalcha kol yamav, he may never divorce her. If he did divorce her, he has been over, he's transgressed, v'lo tiyeh le'isha. So he's done a lot, so he's done something wrong by divorcing her. Is there a remedy? Yes, remarry her. By remarrying her and keeping her as your wife forever, you've created a remedy. Those are two cases of lav hanitak le'aseh. Now, Rabbi Yochanan's view, on yesterday's daf and again today, Rabbi Yochanan's view is that the only time when there's a lav hanitak le'aseh that you can get malchot is not if you didn't fulfill the aseh, because as long as you have an opportunity to fill the aseh, you can argue, I'm going to do it one day. One day I'm going to do it. One day I'm going to marry her and keep her. One day I'm going to do it. One day I'm going to let the mother bird go. Meanwhile, I'm keeping them all together. One day I'll let her go. As long as you have the remedy as an option, there's no malchot. Only if you, with an action, destroy the opportunity of the remedy, then malchot kicks in. Says Rabbi Yochanan in our Gemara, Ein lanu ela zot v'od acheret. The only case I can think of where you could get malchot, in a case of a lav hanitak le'aseh, is with shiluach hakein, is with a mother bird, because you could kill the mother bird. So you could take the two birds together. Now you've committed a lot aseh. Do you get malchot? Do you get lashes? No, not yet, because you have a remedy. Just let the mother bird go, and then you're off the hook. And he says, I will. No malchus. The only time he gets the malchus is if he kills the mother bird. And now he can't send her away, it's done. So now he gets malchus because he's done the wrong and he doesn't have a remedy. And Rabbi Yochanan says, and there's one other case. And then the Gemara goes into a delightful little discussion. Where's this other case? What other case is he referring to? He doesn't tell us what the other case is. And one of the cases the Gemara explores is that next case in Kitetse of lo tiyeh le'isha. What would happen? He rapes her, he marries her, he divorces her, so now he's committed a law taseh, and then he murders her. One could imagine such a situation. So now he can't, it's exactly like the mother bird. Now he's destroyed the opportunity for remedy. Because what's he supposed to? He's supposed to remarry her, and then he won't get malchut for divorcing her. But he can't remarry her because he just murdered her. Says the Gemara, it can't be that, because ida katla kamle midrabimine. Then we have a principle of he's guilty of death. There's a capital sentence over his head. When there's a capital sentence over his head, you don't give him lashes, you don't give him malchut. That's kimle midrabimine. That's the Gemara. Asks Tosfos. That's fine. But why does it say if he murdered her? What happens if she just died? Isn't that also the remedy is lost? Says Tosfos, Imken lo bitla ihu. It must be he who does it. It's not just that the remedy disappears as an option. It has to be he who causes the remedy to disappear. In that case, asks Tosfos, why can't we talk about where he killed her b'shogeg? He didn't shoot her. He ran her over in the street, and there's no evidence. There was no evidence it was deliberate. He was talking on his cell phone. She happened to be on the street. He runs her over, and she's dead. That's shogeg. So now there isn't capital punishment on his head. If there isn't capital punishment on his head, now we can give him malchus for divorcing the wife that he should have stayed with all his life. Asks Tosfos. Answers Tosfos something amazing. Look what Tosfos says. V'yesh lomar di'imkein hainu kamo meite me'eleha kivan daharga shelo b'mitkaven. This is mind-blowing. Says Tosfos, when you do something unintentionally, it's as if it happened through you but not by you. You didn't do it. There are other forces. You were used as an agent. Hashem used you as an agent. The forces of the world used you as an agent. You were an agent for the death, but it wasn't you. It's only you when it's with full intentionality. Then it's you. But anything less than full intentionality, if it's shogeg, then that's considered meta me'eleh. It's as if she died naturally. Some other force killed her. You happen to be the agent, but some other force killed her. Isn't that an incredible concept? By the way, Tosfos just adds there then, Kach hikshe Mashiach. The Mashiach asked that question. And Tosfos Makkos, he's not talking about Mashiach, and he's not talking about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. When he says Mashiach, he means Morishi Yechir. my teacher, may he live. And he calls him Mashiach. It's part of the style of the Tosfos in Masechta Makkos. What's interesting is in some manuscripts that have been found of the Tosfos in Makkos, instead of Mashiach, Moharaf is written. I've put it there in brackets so that you can see it, which stands for Moreinu Harav Rabbeinu Peretz. And that's how we know that the Tosfos in Makkos was written by the Talmidei Rabbeinu Peretz, by the Talmidim of Rabbeinu Peretz. The Tiretz and he, Rabbeinu Peretz, and now we know who Mashiach is. Mashiach is Rabbeinu Peretz. And so Rabbeinu Peretz asked this question and he answered in this way. So the Tosfos gives the credit to the author of this reasoning. Asks Rabbi Kiva Eiger. So exciting. This whole thing is just so exciting. Just even what Tosfos says there. If somebody does something unintentionally, the reason he's patur, the reason he's not punished, is not because of a technicality. The reason he's not punished is because it wasn't him. There were other forces at play. He was an agent. He wasn't the initiator. Ask Rabbi Kiva Eiger. Okay, so I understand. If he does it unintentionally, it's not him. But what happens if he did it fully intentionally? But there was no hatra'ah. The witnesses didn't warn him. Now he knows exactly what he's doing. He takes out a gun in full awareness and he says to her, because of the trouble you got me into, you went to the newspapers, you made a Me Too claim, your life is over, pulls the trigger, kills her in front of witnesses. Clear. But nobody warned him. There's no hatra'ah. Can he get the death sentence? No. So there's no death sentence, says Rabbi Kiva Eiger, but then there's Kim Lemid Rabbi. Now you can give him Malchus. So what will you try giving Tosfos' answer? That this wasn't through him, this wasn't him, it was through him. Come on. You saw exactly what happened. There's no, the facts aren't doubted. Everybody knows he did it intentionally. He might have even said, I'm doing it in full awareness of what I'm doing, but there was no hatra'ah. That's a great question. And Rabbi Kiva Eiger doesn't answer it. Based on our understanding, let's explore this and say, what is Tosfos' principle? Tosfos' principle is, if it's unintentional, if it's shogeg, it's not you, it's through you. It's not by you, it's through you. Where on the spectrum do you place the slider? When does it start becoming enough of a shogeg not to be you? What did we learn yesterday? The moment you're 1 millimeter off the mezid, you're in the realm of shogeg. And Tosfos would hold that realm of shogeg is already enough to say, it wasn't you, it wasn't by you, it was through you. Even though, so that we're talking about micromillimeters of differences in nuance between levels of intentionality. There's 100% intentionality and there's 99.999% intentionality. And if it's 99.999% intentionality, it's already, according to Tosfos, in the realm of shogeg. And you've already applied the principle, this is not, we can't be sure that this was by him. God might have been playing a part in this too. That he had a moment where he did this, where he got angry, who knows what happened. The only time you can be sure that the intentionality is 100% is if there was hatra'ah. And what is the law of hatra'ah? It has to be 4 seconds before the action. If it's 5 seconds before the action, we're no longer sure that it's 100% intentionality. We'll talk about that in a moment. What troubled me all night, literally, was it's such a beautiful answer, and it's so clear. If we understand the Rambam in Hilchos Sanhedrin, where the Rambam says, I didn't quote this yesterday, I quoted Shimish Kop, but that's based on this Rambam, where the Rambam paskins, it's in the Gemara, but the Rambam paskins it l'halacha to the consternation of the Kesef Mishnah. Echad Talmid Chacham ve'echad Am Haaretz tzarich hatra'ah. No matter how wise a person is and experienced a person is, if he doesn't have hatra'ah, if he isn't warned, he cannot be punished. Says the Rambam, Shelo nitna hatra'ah ela lavchin ben shogeg u'mezid. Because the purpose of hatra'ah is to differentiate between intentional and unintentional. So now you've got a big Talmid Chacham who knows the whole of Shas and all of Shulchan Aruch, who takes out his gun and deliberately shoots a person and kills them. And what's he going to say? Nobody warned me, so I didn't realize that was Asur. Yes, I wasn't in my full 100% mind when I did it. Had somebody said to me 3 seconds before I pulled the trigger, do you realize what you're about to do? I would have stopped. There's a difference between 100% intentionality and 99.99% intentionality. And that seems so beautiful and so obvious if you learn the Tosfos. what worried me all of last night is the Achronim talk about this, all of the Gedolah Achronim talk about this question of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, right until the current day. And if it's so obvious, why does nobody say it? There are long discussions about how to resolve. The Aruch LaNer talks about it. It's talked about all sorts of ways how to resolve Rabbi Akiva Eiger's kasha. Why not the simple way? And early this morning, I came across a sefer written by a Rov in Poland, in a little town. When I started doing a bit of research, I could find nothing about him. He wrote a sefer on 3 volumes, on the Zikin and on Kodshim. And he's from this little town. I researched the town because I couldn't find anything about him. I found it was a town in which there were 400 Jews at its height. When he was there as the rabbi of the town, it was at its height. There were 400 Jews, which was 25% of the population. Can you imagine the size of this little yeshuv in the middle of Poland? It's 30 kilometers from Bialystok. And there, this Rov of this little town, unknown town, an unknown Rov, writes this beautiful sefer. I started paging through it just to see. He's got such beautiful things. He's got haskamas from Rabbi Tzikach and other Gedolim of the time. So I knew I'm dealing with somebody reliable. And he says it. Brings the Rabbi Akiva's kasha, and he says, "V'nira de lo kasha midi." To me, this is not a problem. Di'im lo itrube havi kamo shogeg. According to Tosfos, even if it's just hatra'ah that is missing, he does it intentionally, but without hatra'ah, that's called shogeg. You've moved 1 millimeter off the extreme on the spectrum, and it's no longer mezid. Because that's what hatra'ah is for. That means if there's no hatra'ah, as the Rambam paskins, and he quotes the Rambam, if there's no hatra'ah, it's shogeg. How can you say it's shogeg? The man says, I know what I'm doing it deliberately, I know the laws, I know it's also, I've learned Masechta Sanhedrin, I've learned Masechta Makkot, I know everything, I know the Shulchan Aruch, I know the Rambam, I know what I'm doing is a terrible thing, shoot, kill. No death sentence. Why? Because no hatra'ah. Why? Because hatra'ah is mavchib ben shogeg lemezid. You don't know that he was a mezid. But he said he was a mezid. Yes, but there's mezid and mezid. There's intentional and intentional, and you can only punish somebody, a beis din. God can punish because he knows exactly what's going on. But a beis din can only punish if there's absolute evidence that the intentionality was at the maximum level on the spectrum of shogeg to mezid. Apart from explaining so many things and understanding so many things, apart from Rabbi Akiva Eiger's question here, it leads one to an understanding of what awareness is. Do you realize? Let's think not of awareness of doing an avera, awareness of good things. You're aware of something. How long does your awareness last? 4 seconds. And then you start moving into the arena of unaware. Not 100% unaware, you're 99% aware, but not 100% aware. You're 100% aware only within 4 seconds of being given the full information that you need. There can be a moment where somebody gives you information that something's bad, you hear that texting while you're driving is a terrible thing, and you read a situation of somebody who has a terrible accident and kills another person, and you have full understanding of the severity of it. How long does it take before you're texting in the car again? 4 seconds. Now, it doesn't mean that 4 seconds you have zero awareness, but we need to understand that our awareness only has a 4-second life cycle. After 4 seconds, we start moving into unaware. It's only 0.0011% unaware, but it's still you moving into the level of unawareness, which means most of our life we're unaware, which means we're living our lives unaware. There's levels of unawareness, because it's only at real moments of being plugged in. And that's why Torah mevi'ah lidei zehirut, as Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoel says. Zehirut means awareness. What brings awareness? Being permanently plugged into Torah. That your mind is there, you're permanently plugged into. There are do's and don'ts. There are things you can do, there are things you can't do. There are consequences of doing things. I have a neshama. It's not just my body. I have a neshama. I've got to keep my neshama sharp and focused and active. And by being plugged into Torah, each one on their own level, each of us on their own level, to have our minds thinking in a Torah way, looking at the world through a Torah lens, that helps keeping awareness alive and going, even though naturally the shelf life of our awareness is 4 seconds. What an unbelievable chiddush in the understanding of the psychology of a human being, of how the mind works, how focus works, how attention works, and how much we need to do, how much work is needed for us to remain aware and to remain conscious. Even at times we're talking to somebody, to be focused and conscious. Do we really think you can talk to somebody and be looking at your cell phone at the same time, and that there's any level of awareness? If even 4 seconds after being given all information you start losing awareness, what chance of awareness have you got if you're doing 2 things at the same time? That's not focus and that's not awareness. And this will lead us, into other understandings. We'll apply it in various parts of our learning, hopefully right through Shas, because to me it's something so foundational that we've discovered in these 2 daf of Gemara. The spectrum of intentional to unintentional, the role of hatra'ah as a kindness to somebody, to bring them into a state of maximal awareness, even if only for 4 seconds, because that 4 seconds is enough to intervene in a vicious process that could end in a negative action, even in murder. That 4 seconds, just to stop for 4 seconds and to say, "Oi, what am I about to do?" That can save a life. And that can save a soul, that can save a neshama. And that's the role of hatra'ah, to give the person the gift of a 4-second pause.